The Grand Rapids Griffins face elimination as they fall in overtime in Game 2 to the Chicago Wolves, and Carter Bear and the Everett Silvertips win their first ever WHL championship.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, including over on YouTube. And Scotty, the Griffins face elimination down 2-0 to the Chicago Wolves after blowing a 3-1 lead in Game 2 and falling in overtime in kind of hilarious fashion. So we'll talk about that game, recap that, before getting to World Championships, in which Moritz Seider, Lucas Raymond, Max Plant, Justin Falk, and Cam Talbot are playing. Just to give you some quick updates on how their teams are doing, how each player is performing. And then finally, Carter Bear, as I referenced in the cold open, is the WHL champion along with his team, the Everett Silvertips, the first time the Everett Silvertips have ever won the WHL championship on their way to the Memorial Cup. So, Scotty, let's start with the Griffins. They fall 4-3 in overtime in Game 2 at Van Andel, face a huge hole going back to Chicago for Games 3 and 4 in this 5-game series. What was your biggest takeaway from that hockey game?
Well, I think my biggest takeaway was just the fact that they're now, back against the wall going forward. But, this is kind of the epitome of every loss they've had in the postseason so far, where you look around, you're like, well, it's not like they played poorly. It's not like they played a bad game. It's just the AHL playoffs are very, grit and grimy and physical. And sometimes you just have, more. It's and this sounds very Captain Obvious, and you could say this about every hockey game ever, but it really is just like whoever can take advantage of the few opportunities they do have, and obviously in the third period that was the separator between two teams. But I think that's my takeaway is every game they've lost so far in the postseason, it's not as though they've been heavily outplayed or blown out or crushed or anything. It's just they're playing in a lot of tight and close games, and they lost this one, obviously, but not an excuse. I mean, they should have found a way, and we'll talk about the third period, I'm sure, throughout the show, because they left a lot on the table there, but this was a pretty close, hard-fought game throughout again.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously didn't get to see Game 1 because I was doing the rehearsal for my sister's wedding. She got married on Friday. Congratulations to my sister Sam and my new brother-in-law Jordan at that. But the games, like you said, the games that they've lost are games in which they've outplayed their opponent, and I felt that was the same here in this game. And you said throughout the show we'd get to set the third period. Well, I'm going to get to it right now, Scotty. I mean, they only allowed 3 shots the entire third period, and they gave up 1 goal and scored 0. They outshot their opponent in that third period, Scotty, what is it, 12-3, 13-3, and still ended up losing. It was one of those games in which I felt, again, the Griffins were the better of the two teams, yet they're finding ways to lose hockey games. And I feel like this one, and finding ways to lose hockey games is, they're in the second round. They've lost 3 total games in 2 5-game series. Back's against the wall now because you've lost 2 back-to-back to start the series. But I digress. The way in which these goals were scored against them are what stands out to me. Because, like you said, the Griffins left a lot on the table, but when they got scored on, it felt almost as if it was because of what they weren't doing rather than what the Chicago Wolves were doing. You look at the second goal that the Chicago Wolves scored to make it 3-2 in the second period. That was a face-off lost, and off the face-off, coverage was terrible. There was a partial screen. Pastava makes the initial save, doesn't see where the rebound goes, and can't get over in time. The shot's not blocked. You win. Defensive zone faceoffs are vital in the playoffs. Well, they're vital all the time, but more so in the playoffs when you could get eliminated and your season could be over just like that, especially in shorter series like we see in the AHL. So losing that face-off draw and then the ensuing coverage was just awful. The power play goal they scored to make it 3-1, all the Griffins kind of collapsed within the slot, and it was just tic-tac-toe passing. Beat Pastava. The third goal, and I give credit to the Wolves on that one. That was a phenomenal passing play. So in that instance, huge credit to the Wolves. The third goal, was it Cal Foot just came across the blue line, and I think there may have been a partial screen using the defender, but just beat Pastava clean. Maybe the first goal, second goal, all playoffs that Michael Pastava would want back. And then in overtime, I mean, if anyone saw that goal, that was a Looney Tunes-esque sequence. I think it was Axel Sandin-Pellikka tried to pass it across to William Lagesson. William Lagesson loses it in his feet, does like 2 360s over the puck. By the time he finds it, he panics to try and throw it to Carter Mazur on the boards, ends up turning it over to the point, deflection, the game's over. Like, it's one of those games where the Griffins, they came out so strong. The third period, they were the better team, but almost couldn't get out of their own way to win the hockey game. It was almost like they couldn't outperform their own mistakes. Which, again,
very on brand for the organization.
I felt, were the better team that deserved to win the hockey game. But here we sit, down 2-0, backs against the wall, games 3 and 4, back in Chicago. They're going to have to come out and be strong. But here's the thing, though, right? We saw it in game 1 against Manitoba, right? They did the same thing. They outplayed Manitoba, got shut out 1-0. If they can just continue to play as good as they are and cut down on mistakes, I have full faith they can win games 3 and 4 and come back to Grand Rapids for a game 5. Like, I didn't feel like they got outclassed in this game, as I've already dictated. So, like, I'm not saying they're done yet. I'm not writing them off.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't after how good of a season they had. You know, I think that would be foolish to think that the season is, over. It's not like they need to rattle off 5-6 wins in a row to advance. Like, you win a couple and force a home game there at the end. So I don't know. I think that it is very fair and justified to point out the shortcomings that have led them to this moment, while also understanding, like, it's not like they have been completely outmanned and outclassed in this series, despite where they find themselves. Like, these are a lot of really close games where one or two things go their way and the outcome's different. And you got to hope that they, have made adjustments and learned enough to make sure that those things go their way in the coming games as well. But yeah, I think after the season they had, a historic season, it would be pretty foolish to just completely write them off.
I think if they win game 3, they go to 5 games. Honestly, I think if you win that game 3, you get game 4 because you'll have the momentum. And then game 5, you come back to Grand Rapids. I don't know who at that point wins that game, but I think if you win game 3, you win game 4. Obviously, if you lose game 3, it's over. So no more room for error. But this team's been so good throughout the postseason, even in some of the games they've lost, that I just can't write them off, even when they're down 2-0 facing elimination.
Yeah.
Scotty, it wasn't all bad, though. I thought there was a lot of positives to glean from this game, too, especially as a Red Wings fan looking to look at the prospects. And we'll talk about that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings, so stay tuned. The hunt for the Stanley Cup is on, and now you can trade every game on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and the championship. And we got one more game to determine who will go to the Eastern Conference Finals, as Game 7 between Montreal and Buffalo is set for May 18th. If you buy the Buffalo Sabres, who are trading at 52%, you put $100 down on them, you could get a payout of $186 because they're trading at 52%. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON, that is LOCKEDON, to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi, trade on anything. Also, got to talk to you guys about Indeed, workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit who you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Again, that is Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Indeed it is.
Head on over to LockedOnPodcast.com/everyday or sign up for the Everydayer Club. Get access to an exclusive Discord with Scotty, myself, and other listeners of the show, as well as ad-free episodes of this podcast. Again, LockedOnPodcast.com/everydayer. Scotty, real quick before we get back into the Griffins, I was doing the Kalshi read and talking about Game 7 between Montreal and Buffalo, and I have two thoughts. One, great series between two young, fun teams that also happen to be in the Atlantic Division. We don't have to belabor that point at the moment. But also, it's been like a week since Carolina finished their series. Like, they finished their series in 4 games before Game 3 between Buffalo and Montreal had even been played. So there's going to be a real rust versus rest argument to be had in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's going to be fascinating to see who comes out fresh or who comes out, with momentum, so to speak.
For sure, yeah. Well, and I'm so glad this series is going 7. I'm so glad because it's so been good. Absolute cinema. Every single game has been absolutely electric. That atmosphere in Montreal is second to none, obviously, and especially when you're talking about an elimination postseason game. Even Game 6 was that was insanity. Like there was 5 goals in the first 15 minutes of the game. There was 2 goals in the first couple of minutes.
Both goalies got pulled. Right, yeah.
Both goalies are getting yanked. It's just that was absolutely incredible to watch as a third-party viewer. And I was pulling for Buffalo just for the sheer fact that I wanted this series to go 7. And now I don't care who wins. I just want to see a good Game 7. So we'll see. I talked about this a little bit on Friday while you were gone. Carolina, they haven't lost a postseason game yet. They've just done that's why they're so far ahead. Right. They have 2 sweeps in 2 series, and I think that probably goes back to your and a lot of people's complaint about the seeding and everything, because their path has just been completely not the same as a handful of other teams, but. Yeah, I don't know. Eastern Conference will be fun, and then the West, we have Colorado and Vegas. So
that'll be fun. All right, Scotty, back to the Griffins. It wasn't all doom and gloom in Grand Rapids. If you're a Red Wings fan looking to see how the prospects are performing, I thought there were 3 in particular who stood out to me: Michael Brandsegg-Nygard, Axel Sandin-Pellikka, and Anton Johansson. Which of those 3 you want to lead off with, dude?
I actually want to start with Anton because we talked about him on Friday as well as a guy who played really well in, I guess in the series up to this point. He has been I think a true difference maker and a guy that is not only pushing play but is also involved in the physicality aspect of this series as well. I think he's been not like a revelation or we know that he's good, but he's really just stood out in this series as somebody that's clearly been one of the best players on the Griffins so far.
We saw it in flashes with his stint in Grand Rapids last postseason, and we're seeing it again this postseason. I thought in this game, again, he was just an absolute standout. Though his activation in the offensive zone has been very good. He also... Excuse me, had to clear my throat there. He also, did you see that movie made along the blue line? He got the puck, waited for the player, got around, drove down low, got a shot on that, and then was digging at the goalie, got into a scrum. Like, his offensive instincts have come a long way. His defensive instincts have come a long way, and he takes no crap from anybody. The way he's been playing this game looks like a guy who's already ready for the NHL. Now, obviously, AHL is different than NHL. We'll have to wait and see what he does in training camp. But if he performs like this in training camp, it's going to make it very difficult on Steve Yzerman and Todd McClellan to send this guy back down to Grand Rapids. And I don't know what that's going to mean for the defensive core, right? Because you just extended JBD and Sherratt, so you already got 6 guys under contract, and we've discussed it. And Wallinder is no longer waivers exempt, so he has to go through waivers, which means you're likely not sending him back down unless you want to expose him to waivers. But, like, that's a very good problem to have. And we saw it with ASP this last year. Like, if they think a guy can contribute, they will have him on the roster. And, you know, I don't want to get too caught up in how well he's performing because, again, I recognize that this is the AHL, and the AHL and the NHL, that leap is huge. But the way he is so noticeable every single game, it makes me really just want to speed up to training camp and see what he can bring. He's been so good, both physically, defensively, and offensively.
Right, and that's the biggest thing that you can say with confidence in May, right? Because, like, we don't know what free agency is going to look like and what, you know, the trade market and just the offseason in general is going to look like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the one thing we can say with confidence is, like, we are just now, based on his play, excited to see how he looks against the NHL players in camp and in the preseason. And he will hopefully be in that mix, which I think is kind of exciting.
Well, and I think the biggest example of why you should be a little cautious when getting excited about how guys play at the AHL level is the other guy who I thought was fantastic in this hockey game, in Michael Brandsegg-Nygard. He's been fantastic just like Anton Johansson every single game this postseason. Super noticeable. And we know that last season he got called up after having good stretch in Grand Rapids and, you know, was better, but still struggled with pace of play and things of that nature. But Michael Brandsegg-Nygard in this game, again, 1 goal, 2 assists. That goal was a little bit lucky, fluky. Kind of went off the goalie and in. I don't know what Primo was doing in net there in that instance, but it was the way he just throws his body around is hilarious to me. Like, there was a sequence, I can't remember if it was the second or the third period, where he hit a guy, got the puck, made the pass, and it created a really good opportunity. And as he made the pass, another guy came in to, like, finish his check, and he just knocked him on his butt. Another time, forecheck, got to the forecheck, didn't get to the puck first, but finished his check, knocked the Wolves player on his butt. Like, his combination of forecheck, physicality, and again, like Anton Johansson, not giving a crap, plus that shot, a couple of different factors that are, like, I listed like 4 or 5 things, but I said it last week, like, seeing him at the AHL level, it excites me. I'm excited to see if he can take that next step because I see an impactful NHL player there if the pace of play and, like, the way he thinks the game can catch up to the NHL level. And I think that at least the pace of play element will, given time. So it just, you see all this and I get so excited. He had a great game despite the loss.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. And that's, and you know, with him, I mean, it's even more just because, like, first round pick, whatever, but you also, like, he now knows what the pace and all that at the NHL level is, right? Like, he's going to go into this camp with an understanding of not only, you know, an improvement on his skills and like he's like, I think it's safe and fair to just say, like, he's too good to be in the AHL, like, at this point. Like, he's better than his peers in that regard, but it is a matter of whether you know, everything's caught up on the NHL side. And I think that he has the luxury, we'll call it, of, you know, having somewhat of an understanding of what it takes already.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, I thought Axel Sandin-Pellikka had a really impressive game. He had 2 assists in this one. Actually, he and MBN and ASP assisted on the same goals. It was actually almost the same set play on power play goal 1 and power play goal 2, where ASP fed MBN and MBN unleashed a cannon, and this cannon's hard to control. Primo gave up rebounds that Sheldon Dries and Edwards Trailmax were able to bury. So, again, even if Embiid's not scoring off his shot's creating chances off rebounds. Sure. Go to the net, score goals. ASP, on the other hand, obviously got the 2 secondary assists in this hockey game, but I thought he was activating very well at the top of the point, making smart shots. Remember, one of my big complaints during the regular season was he would just take shots in the shin pads. He didn't always take the direct path to the net this time when he was shooting the puck. He'd oftentimes, and I saw it a couple times, look for the guy breaking across the front of the net to try and shoot it off his stick instead of going directly at the net where a blocked shot was possible because the guy was coming at him. Saw it a couple times. He cleared a puck from the crease in the defensive zone. I think his offensive instincts really showed in this game, though.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah. All right, Scotty, let's head to another break. When we return, I got one more thing from this hockey game I wanted to touch upon, and that's Michael Pastava. And then we'll get into our other Red Wings and prospects updates. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Missed calls and slow follow-ups are silent killers for businesses. That's how money gets left on the table without even realizing it. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the business communications systems built so you never miss a call. Quo helps businesses keep every conversation organized by letting your entire team manage calls and texts from one shared number. No more dropped messages, missed opportunities, or disconnected communication. It's designed for how modern businesses actually operate. And the part that you're going to love, everything lives in one clean thread. Calls, texts, voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation, so nothing falls through the cracks. It just makes your business feel more organized and responsive. Money is on the line. Always say hello with Quo. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNHL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNHL. Scotty, Michael Pastava, first time all postseason. He's allowed 4 goals. Only 1 goal we've already kind of touched upon was, I wouldn't say a softie, but one he'd want back. It was a good shot. Don't want to take anything away from Cal Foot's shot. But it was one that you could also say that Pastava should have saved. And I think this leads us to the question of, with this performance, do we finally see Sebastian Cossa in Game 3?
Honestly, no. I mean, I'm sure there will be more of a conversation now than there has been all postseason up to this point, because Pastava's been absolutely lights out, and in this game, wasn't. But I don't know, man. I think that there is, like, when was the last time Cossa played a game?
Right before the season ended. Yeah, been a couple of weeks,
like 2+ weeks, almost 3. Like, I think that throwing him out there at this point in an elimination game is a heck of a decision. And like, if it works, then you're a genius, and it works. And if it doesn't, then I mean, that is a very gutsy move, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So, yeah, I just, in elimination games going forward, I can't imagine they're going to change that up too terribly much, unless Pastava gets absolutely rocked at some point here. But I don't think that's what I don't think he got rocked in this game. So.
Well, and we saw Manitoba try that, right? The elimination game, Game 4, they put Milic in net, and we know how that turned out. It was the most dominating game by the Griffins to that point in the playoffs, although Milic isn't a former first-round pick like Sebastian Cossa is. Sebastian Cossa has a couple degrees more of pedigree than Milic did. And Milic, we talked about it wasn't all his fault. Like, the Griffins just dominated thoroughly, and the defense in front of him kind of collapsed. But I think there is an argument for it if Coach Watson believes they've ran Pastava into the ground. Like, if he's running on zero, if he's running on fumes, then you have Sebastian Cossa to go to. And you know how good he can be. He has the best season yet in the AHL. And yeah, he struggled down the stretch. And I'm sure they're getting flashbacks of how he performed last playoffs. But every new game is an opportunity to rewrite the history books on how you perform. So it's going to honestly just come down to, how does Coach Watson view Pastava? Does he view that game wasn't on him? It was some poor defensive moments from his team. Because obviously if you ask Pastava, he's going to say, yeah, I'm good to go.
Right.
Watson has to make the determination, does he feel that Pastava needs a rest and give Sebastian Costa the crease? Or does he feel this guy's been our guy, and one bad goal in game 2 after playing, that would be his 6th consecutive playoff game, doesn't mean that doesn't shake my faith. How does switching goalies get viewed by the rest of the team? Does it reek of desperation? Does it reek of panic? Or is it to try and light a fire under their butts to get them going? There's so much. I honestly could see the argument for going to Kosa, but I could see the argument with sticking with Pastava. I don't know what the right choice would be here, but I do think I lean more towards what you were saying, where it's Pastava's been so good that you should just kind of go back to him. But just know, if it doesn't work and he has a bad game, then hindsight's going to dictate. Everyone's going to say they should have gone to Kosa. But other way around is true too.
Right,
so.
Yeah, you can pretty much, you could, it doesn't matter who you put in that's
right.
going to be the case no matter what, an elimination game. So
unless they win, and then you look like a genius.
Exactly.
Scotty, World Championships is happening right now. A couple games that are in the books. Just I want to highlight a couple of really notable plays. Moritz Seider played 25 minutes in a 3-1 loss to Team Germany, and probably had the highlight of the tournament thus far, with a split-second reaction to turn 180 degrees and sweep a puck off the goal line. And I mean split second. It was under a second how quick he did it. It made the rounds on social media, and it's just yep, there's my guy who didn't finish as a finalist in the Norris, just being the defensive juggernaut that everyone knows he is. 60 points isn't enough points, I guess, though.
I guess not. Yeah, the play itself was awesome, and the still shot photo was maybe even cooler. So
right, but it was a great moment for him. He's maybe the one good player on Team Germany right now. That's very disrespectful to the rest of the players. I apologize, but they don't have Draisaitl. They don't have Tim Stutzla. It's Moritz Seider. Right. That's the guy for them. He's going to be played into the ground, and he's going to thrive because he thrives getting driven into the ground, apparently, which is such a good thing for the Red Wings.
I guess fortunately for Germany, he is used to being absolutely
right
played into the ground. So it's not new territory for him.
Right, and then Sweden lost 5-3 to Canada. Lucas Raymond scored an absolute snipe of a power play goal, I believe it was, against Team Canada, assisted by Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and he scored again as we were recording this against Denmark. As well, that one was assisted by Joel Pedersen. So Lucas Raymond on the international stage again, scoring lots of goals. We saw it during the Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think. I mean, again, we've kind of driven that point into the dirt too. He needs to shoot more. Hopefully, he's fully healthy, and this is an opportunity for him to work on that.
Cam Talbot, pending UFA, but still a Red Wing technically for another month or two.
Yeah.
Got a shutout against Team Italy. You would kind of hope that they'd get the win. Canada would get the win against Italy, but got the shutout nonetheless, made 19 saves. Max Plant and Justin Falk with Team USA. Team USA 1-1. Lost to Switzerland. They haven't done too terribly much. Max Plant played a lot of minutes in his first game in that loss to Switzerland, but other than that, just hasn't been too fruitful for the Americans on the roster.
I mean, it's, we talked about it when these rosters came out. It's
Team USA is pretty
pretty
weak this year.
Right. There's not a lot of players that are on this Team USA that were on the Olympics for Team USA. So
correct. Scotty, and then finally we have to talk about our boy Carter Bear. 15th overall pick from this most recent draft.
Man.
He is now a WHL champion as the Everett Silvertips win their first ever championship. And Carter Bear, who had a slow start to the year, finished with 77 points in 53 games played, 36 goals. And in the playoffs, had 22 points in 18 games played, 7 goals, 15 assists, was pivotal. His line was pivotal in the series win over the Prince Albert Raiders, 5 games. So, yeah, Carter Bear, after a slow start, starting to look like the guy who was projected to be maybe a top 10 pick prior to his partial Achilles tear the year of his draft. So the Red Wings may have gotten a steal there.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, obviously he's doing great there. I think, a lot of those conclusions won't probably be made until he, rises up through the Red Wings system itself. But still really cool to see and still an awesome moment for him in his young career. So, yeah, hopefully this fall we can maybe start getting closer and closer looks at him.
Yeah, hopefully he turns pro and we can see him either at the AHL level or he surprises like Emmett Finney and makes the roster. That'd be fun.
That would
Red Wings need help.
Crazy. Yeah, that certainly. Yeah.
And just to correct myself, he was 13th overall, not 15th. They've had a lot of picks in that range in the last few years. So
yes, they have.
Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.